All right, everybody. Uh, as Whitney said, I am Damion Lupo, and I'm the author of the QRP book. We're going to be diving into some pretty cool ways to fund real estate investments, and both for you and for other people, and maybe in deals that you're doing. We're going to get into all that. We're going to get into some things that happened the last couple of months that really changed everything because Congress does what Congress does. They try to go fix things by messing things up and making other things work better sometimes, and that's what happened here. So we're going to dig into that, give you some cool insights and some new strategies. Before I do that, what I wanted to share something, and it before we get into the CARES Act, which is basically bottom line, I'm going to show you guys how to get $200,000 out of retirement jail. But before we get into that, I want to give you a little background on me, and one of the things that's really important for you to know and for us to really think about is the amount of time that we have to make decisions now with investing and things we do. Everything is moving fast and things are changing. When the CARES Act happened in March, it happened almost overnight, and all of a sudden $2 trillion was released, kind of thrown into the economy. And you have to be willing to pivot and make decisions really quick. If you have an investment that comes up, you're not going to have 6 weeks to think about it. It's going to be gone in 6 minutes, 6 hours, 6 days. Like, things don't last. And that happens in our lives in addition to investing. One of the things that happened for me about 3 years ago, I had a friend of mine call me and say, "Hey, do you want to go see the gorillas in Uganda?" And I said, "Silverbacks?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yes." So it was like 4.5 seconds. I made the decision. Trip filled up, and I got to go hang out with these guys. And this was me after this alpha literally pushed us aside and started shaking this tree. And we thought, this is crazy. What's going to happen? Um, Anyways, the point of that is that there are opportunities for us to make decisions in our life that we don't really have a lot of time to pull the trigger, and we have to practice. Some of us take forever making decisions, and some of us make decisions split second. We need that muscle to be stronger because things are moving faster. And this changed my life, being able to do this type of experience. It's also a reason for making money. If you're gonna make money just to make money, I can tell you how that ends. It doesn't end well. Making money to have experiences and connect. Why I think all of us are doing it. And then ultimately you get to go hang out and snuggle up with gorillas if that's what you want to do. But beyond that, the reason that it's important to make those decisions is because if you don't, you're going to have bad tattoos. You're going to have regret. And it's not just a bad tattoo, but it's something that actually hit me pretty personally a number of years ago, about 5 years ago, when I found out my dad was sick. And he said, I sat down in Alaska with him, and he looked at me and he said, there were so many things that I wanted to do, but I can't do them. I'm out of time. And it was heartbreaking, and it was like burned into my soul that if you don't make these decisions, if you don't pull the trigger on whatever matters, you're going to end up with a really bad tattoo, and it's called regret. And so I want to really help y'all get some information and take some action, do some things that are going to really shift and pivot your life and head you down the road that you want to be on, that you've heard about. But sorry about that. It's called live GPS syncing. Little iridium beep in the background. Apologize for that. Anyways, this is Dad and I right then, right before he passed away, and it's just a constant reminder to me that no matter what I'm doing, I need to make sure that I'm doing the things that are going to move the needle, that I'm not punting down the road, because the down the road may not happen. I don't want to have that conversation with anybody saying, "I wish I would have, wish I could have." Ultimately, I think this comes down to something called the mastery hours. This is a number that Malcolm Gladwell made famous back a number of years ago in one of his books. I think it was either Blink or Outliers, one of the two. And it's the number of hours that it takes to really become not necessarily a master, but develop mastery. And so I've done a couple of those things, two things, one in particular, martial arts. I've got 4 black belts. You can see a couple of them behind me. And this is one of the demos that I was playing around and having a good time showing off 10,000 hours of training and scar tissue. The other thing was my real estate investing. And I share this because it's really relevant when you have people teaching that have done stuff. I've been through this stuff. I've been a professional investor for 20 years. And this was my first portfolio that I started off with, where I went from 0 to this portfolio in about 5 years. It was pretty cool. I mean, 150 houses, probably easier to just get 150 doors in an apartment versus buying 150 houses. But this is what it looked like. I had Will Smith's car from Bad Boys 2, and I thought I was top dog until 2008 happened. And then that was kind of what my life looked like. Probably a lot of people's lives. Maybe some of you guys had that experience. And it really it helped me, it humbled me. Whenever you lose that $20 million portfolio went away. And when you have everything that you are, your self-worth is tied to your net worth. It's a very strange experience when it all goes away, because you start to wonder, why am I even doing any of this stuff? I got nothing left. So after this experience, I spent a couple of years figuring out really why I was going to work so hard, why I was going to go do investing. Was it just for more money, more dead presidents on pieces of paper, or was there something else? And what I came up with was that the focus is breaking financial bondage. It's a million people's financial shackles. It's breaking you free from the crap that's keeping you stuck. And I'm going to show you some tools over the next few minutes that are going to give you options. And it's not going to just give you options. It's going to help you give other people options. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about us being free. You can be free on the top of a mountaintop by yourself, and it's not really worth it. I can tell you from experience, it's pretty lame when you're all by yourself and you're rich. You really want to be able to do this with other people and have people go with you on this journey of freedom. This, in my opinion, is what we should actually be afraid of. And it's not that necessarily the people at the IRS are afraid, or that they're bad people. It's that the IRS as an institution, if we don't understand the rules, this thing is going to just squeeze us to death. And it's going to squeeze us because this is the amount of money, 70% of our money, that the IRS is going to pull out of us over our lifetime. That's a terrible number, but the alternative is way better. The alternative is zero. I'm going to show you how to go to zero, how you can actually end up paying no taxes forever. Many of you probably remember the argument, I guess the debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton back in 2016, where Hillary said, Donald Trump doesn't want to show us his tax returns because he doesn't pay taxes. And Trump said, that makes me smart. And it was like, well, it made him smart to actually use the tax code. The problem with academics is they don't actually use the tax code. They think paying taxes is somehow patriotic. And it's simply not. The tax code is set up to drive behaviors. And so if you're not paying taxes, it's either you're just literally not making any money at all, or you're making money and you're doing things the government wants you to do. So I'm going to show you how to do what the government wants you to do and go to zero, which is a good number when you consider you get to have 3 times as much money than you would if you didn't use the code. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift the thinking. We're going to shift the thinking by these ideas, and it's going to allow us to invest differently. And once we do that, I'm going to open you up to something many of you have never heard of. It's called the EQRP. It's the Enhanced Qualified Retirement Plan. And it allows you to have control in a different way and really drive your future. So you have a life by design and not so much by default. The EQRP, the E stands for enhanced. It also stands for energy, because there's a different level of energy when you are responsible for your money. Most of us are trained to just hand our money over to a financial advisor that's going to sell us mutual funds and then keep us stuck in this thing, on this merry-go-round or this roller coaster indefinitely. The energy behind an EQRP is about you owning your life. It's about you making the choices. It's about self-responsibility. It's not about being a victim. Totally different world. So we're gonna shift into that. I'm going to show you why and how it's so powerful. Ultimately, when you think about this is the Ferrari of 401ks. It's truly in a class of its own, and it's very different than anything else that's out there. And I'll get into some of the distinctions for the different options that are out in retirement land, and we'll go into those and pick those apart and give you very specific details on why things are different and why this is the Ferrari.
Hey, Damion.
Yeah, please.
Before you launch into this amazing solutions that you're about to present, I think there's a couple people in the waiting room. Would you let them?
Oh, let's open them up.
To hear this.
All right, waiting room participants. Thanks for letting me know. All right, William and Scott. William, Scott, thanks for being on here. Sorry you were stuck in the waiting room. You joined us at the $30 trillion slide. So this is all being recorded, and y'all have access to it. Whitney can provide that access to you, and feel free to go back and watch the first few minutes. And then if you have questions at the end, I'll definitely answer those. So anybody, including William and Scott, just type your questions into the chat box, and Whitney, interrupt me if there's anybody else that pops in. All right, so there's $30 trillion sitting in retirement accounts. This is where all the liquidity is in America. There's a lot of wealth in real estate, but the actual cash is sitting inside of these retirement accounts. And many of you have things like IRAs and 401ks with this money. And a lot of your friends, family, neighbors, and they have the same thing, but they don't really know that they have access to doing something other than just mutual funds. And I'm going to show you how you do that and what the options are and what the best tools are. Biggest question I hear is, why haven't I heard of this? People go, well, I don't understand why, if this is so good, why I haven't heard of it. Well, it's pretty simple, because the Wolf of Wall Street, who was Jordan Belfort, and Leonardo DiCaprio played him in this movie, it depicts Wall Street, and it's really about the fees and the control. Wall Street would like to keep your money. They'd like to fee you, and they'd like to keep control of your money and your assets till death do you part, and then beyond that. So that's why you haven't heard about it. If more people hear about this and do this, they're going to pull money out, and eventually Wall Street is going to go broke. Do I think that'll ever happen? No, because most people are never going to pick up anything other than the Wall Street Journal or Money Magazine. And there's a dozen of y'all here on this. Most people can't be bothered, and y'all are doing the right thing by getting alternative information instead of just the nonsense that's out there. So the EQRP is a checkbook account for your retirement money. It allows you to invest very quickly in 45 seconds. If you want to do a deal, you don't get hammered and feed to death like you would with many other options out there. You're protected from lawsuits. You have a $100,000 credit line built into most plans, and you have an unlimited ability to juice your returns with debt. So with real estate, we love the fact that you can put debt on it and lenders will lend. And this is a way the EQRP allows you to do this, to invest without getting taxed. And I'm going to show you how, unfortunately, many times we get taxed if we have the wrong retirement account and we do real estate investing. Okay, so what can you do? In the EQRP, you can invest in things like real estate, whether it's syndications or house flips or almost anything you can imagine, coffee farms or something in Central America. You can be the bank. You can lend your money out and get mailbox money. Every month you get a check because somebody's paying you interest versus you paying interest on something else. You can buy physical gold and silver and keep it yourself. You don't need to have it in some type of vault somewhere unless you wanted to. You totally have that option. And things like cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Our system of currency is fundamentally changing. Globally, we are moving away from paper and our fiat system into a space of centralized crypto. And it's going to be centralized and decentralized. And I believe there's going to be a war. Bottom line is you should know what's going on. And the way that you understand things is to really input money. We tend to pay attention to the things we pay for. So if you buy a little bit of Bitcoin, you're going to tend to learn about it a lot faster than if you just read an article on it. All right, certain things that you can't do with EQRP. You can't invest with certain people. Your retirement account can't invest with your kids or your parents or property that you're going to use today. It's meant to be a retirement vehicle for the future. Although you could buy a vacation property that you were going to rent out and then you just give it to yourself when you retire. So that's an option. You can't do collectible rugs or cars or wine, particularly wine, because you would just end up with a bunch of empty bottles and a hangover when you retired, and the IRS and the Congress thinks that's pretty stupid because you'd have no assets to live on. So a few things are disqualified. Pretty much anything else is available. Okay, so let's talk about the thing that most people are familiar with, which is a self-directed IRA, and the differences between that and an EQRP. So you're really clear. Self-directed IRAs, by the way, are about a $10 trillion industry. The reason most people, including many of you, either have one or that's what you're familiar with is because there's massive amounts of marketing, and it's because they're incredibly profitable for custodians. So I'm gonna show you the differences, and you can make your own choice. I think it'll be pretty obvious here in a minute. IRAs are basically slow because there's a custodian that you've got to have. So in most cases, there's a custodian that's in the middle of you and your deals. If you do a real estate deal and there's leverage, meaning there's debt on the deal, you're going to pay UBIT tax. I'm going to show you an example or two of that and how that's incredibly painful and incredibly stupid because it's not necessary. And you can only put $6,000 a year into a self-directed IRA. So over 20 years, you're not really going to have a lot of money. You're not going to get rich. You're just going to get old. On the other hand, in EQRP, you can put 10 times as much money. So over 20 years, you're talking over $1 million. It's fast because you're in charge. You write the checks, unlimited amounts of debt, no taxes. Major differences. These aren't even close to being the same thing. And they're under different parts of the tax code too. So they definitely are different things. Here's an example of a syndication. Now, many of you are looking at syndications. You're thinking about them. You're learning about them. And here's a syndication that is down in Austin, actually right by where I used to live. And it was a $50 million deal, which is, it's kind of a medium-sized deal. For some of you, it's maybe a big deal if your only deal is a house so far. And this is what a lot of times we'll invest in as a syndication with other people. where 10 million of this particular deal was individual money and the other 40 million was debt from some institution. So in this deal, if we were to say, okay, 5 years went by, and this is about what happened with this deal, there's about $5 million in cash flow and it's selling for 85 million. That's pretty good, or maybe not, because that $40 million in profit, if we had a bunch of IRA investors, self-directed IRA investors, they're going to get hurt. As an example, you have $100,000 from somebody that invested from an IRA. And out of that profit, if they made $100,000 in profit, then $80,000 of that would owe taxes. So in this case, let's say, you've got an IRA, you invested 100 grand, you've got a tax bill for $29,000. I mean, it's going to ruin your day. And people are having this happen all the time because nobody told them, and nobody's really required to tell you. It's your job to know this. So now you know. It's because this UBIT thing, it's unrelated business income tax, it's triggered. I'm going to let a few more folks in here. The UBIT tax, and for those of you that just joined, this is recorded, so y'all can, you can check it out later, the beginning of it, and I'll also answer questions at the end. So the UBIT tax is triggered with any type of IRA investment that has debt. Doesn't mean you took out the debt. It just means there's debt in the deal, and it triggers unrelated debt financed income. So basically what happened is the IRS said, well, okay, if you've got $100,000 you invested and you made this pile of profit, it wasn't just your 100,000. It was also some debt money. And that's not all yours. So you have to share the profits with the government. Well, that sucks, but it's also, there's an option where if you have the right account, which is not an IRA, if you have an EQRP, you're going to pay zero, because EQRPs are set up under a different part of the tax code that's exempt. This happened years ago, kind of a funny story, but typical lobbying. There were a bunch of developers and they went and they said, hey, Congress, we want to have a rule that exempts people that are using their retirement accounts under these pensions where EQRP lives. We don't want them to pay taxes if they invest in our development deals. And they wrote an exemption in the laws. So if you've got the right retirement account, instead of losing 29,000, you get to keep all 100,000 of your profit. Major deal, totally different. And fundamentally, the only option is obviously the EQRP. It's because it's exempt. So here's another example. If you were flipping a house and you used an IRA, let's say this is an actual example of someone that we work with. It's a client. They came to us before they were a client and they said, just heard you talk and here's our deal. We're about to sell this house. We rehabbed and we're flipping it. Our net profit's supposed to be 58,000. I said, okay, what's the problem? And they said, it's an IRA that we used. And I said, so you have a huge problem. It's called UBIT. And they said, yeah, can we fix it? And I said, yes. So what we did is we took that property and instead of them paying $20,000, we built an EQRP for them and and when they converted it, they moved the asset over and then they sold it. They finished the sale. They got to keep the whole 58,000. So instead of having a $20,000 tax bill, they had a zero tax bill. That 15-minute conversation, way better than Geico. Like, I don't care how much that 15% you're saving is, this is a better call. Again, EQRPs are exempt from UBIT and UDFI when you have leveraged real estate. So it's fundamentally a game changer. Okay, so what if you are already invested with your self-directed IRA? Many of you have these and you already have a deal you've invested in and you're thinking, oh no, am I going to get taxed? Here's what we do. We take your investment. So your investment's that property on the bottom left, and we're going to move it over. We're actually going to do an in-kind rollover. So you can roll over assets in addition to cash. When you move it over, no more UBIT. It's gone. It's kind of like these folks. They got to move their asset. They did the rollover, no tax. So it changes the game when you actually can go into a space where you're paying 0 versus 70% over your lifetime. That compounds into a lot of like poverty. Okay, so who's qualified? Many of you are asking, okay, can I do this? Should I do this? Would I do this? Syndicators, if you're putting together deals, you're qualified. If you're self-employed, if you have an online business or you decide you want to do this and you say, okay, well, I'll set up an eBay store or an online anything. I mean, if you have any type of business, it doesn't have to be a corporation or an LLC. It can be whatever. You could be mowing lawns. As a kid, I'll show you a picture in a minute, but I had lemonade stands and stuff. You could do that and you're qualified. If you manage property, some people think that if you manage property, that's not a business somehow. And if you manage property and you're getting paid as a property manager, that is a business. You're totally qualified. If you have, if you're a W-2 employee, if you literally have a job, full-time, part-time, whatever, That's okay. You can still set this up. If you have a 401k at work, you can do this. You can have multiple plans. Also, one of those mysterious things that people think you can only have one. You can have 20. And if you have employees, you can do this. Very different. This is the only type of plan that works where you can do this type of stuff, real estate investing, and you can have employees, and it works with you. So it's really hard to say that you can't do this. Pretty much anybody that wants to do this can do this. The Secure Act that changed a lot of the rules happened in December. And unfortunately, Google is still confused. And so there's a lot of commentary that's actually wrong because the rules changed. It requires that if you have any type of retirement account now, if you have any type of 401k plan, that you have to cover full-time and part-time employees. And EQRP does that. So you can hire people, you can have people. It's also protected from lawsuits. Big problem in America today, like anywhere y'all live, any city, if there's a bus there, they have on the side pretty much everywhere there is a thing that says, been hurt, had your feelings hurt, call us, we'll sue somebody. I mean, this is America. It's unfortunate, but it's reality. So the last thing you want to do is have a retirement account that ends up, you get sued and you lose because some activist judge decides to rule against you and they take your retirement account. It's protected with an EQRP. So whether you have 100,000 or a few million, doesn't make any difference. It's going to be protected. And that's important for everybody. The other thing that happened is they changed the rules so that if you had, like, let's say last year you made too much money, you can actually set up a retirement account in this year. So it's like retroactive tax planning, which is kind of weird, but you can set up set up a retirement account for the previous year and contribute to it. So like, let's say you made 200 grand in this example, you could contribute, say 50,000+ bucks, reduce your income down. And there's another thing that happened 2.5 years ago, where if you made under $157,000, you could reduce your income by 20%. It's called a qualified business income tax deduction. So if you can get your income below 157, which just happened because you were contributed to your retirement account, you get another 20% off of that if it's a pass-through entity that is your business. What this did, if you add these different tax things together, and I'm not a CPA, I just happen to do a lot of investing and have a lot of clients, and we work with Provision and some of these other companies extensively. These are the strategies that the wealthy people are using to not pay taxes. So in this case, use a couple of these different things, contribute to a retirement account. You have a lower income at 115. Guess what just happened? You just saved another $20,000. So massive opportunity to stop paying all these taxes if you actually know what the rules are. And really what that means is you know who knows the rules, because there's 100,000 pages of tax code. There's no way anybody, no CPA, I mean, unless you're like a savant or something, and that's what you do. I mean, I've read a lot of tax code, but not 100,000 pages. You need to know who knows this stuff and make sure they're a part of your team. People like Whitney, people like, Julie and Annie. I mean, all the people that are out there doing it, they have intelligence around being in the trenches. And that's important for y'all to be connected to them so that you can be keeping this $20,000 instead of giving it away. Okay, here's another way to do some amazing things, another strategy. And if you are trying to keep up and your head kind of exploding, don't worry. Again, this is being recorded and I'm going to make myself available. If y'all want to reach out to me, I can help decipher these things, because a lot of this stuff is pretty intense, and it's kind of wild to realize you can actually do these things. Here's a strategy. You can become a real estate professional. You are a spouse, and let's say you found $100 million building and you bought it. So you get about right now $300,000 in depreciation, which is like a loss. Well, if you have that, let's say you also had a retirement account with $300,000. You can convert the retirement account money from traditional over to Roth. And I'm going through all these steps on purpose. So you convert this money. Normally that's a taxable event where you now owe income tax on $300,000 in income. Well, in this scenario, your depreciation actually offsets the income from the conversion. So no tax. Well, now all your money is Roth. So guess what you can do? You can pull all that money out and do what you want, including buying the building. So like, let's say in here, you literally, in this example, all you have is money in a retirement account. There's a way for you, if you wanted to be able to convert the money, not pay penalties, not pay taxes, buy a building, do this all in the same year, and be financially free this year. And it's not unrealistic to have $200,000 or $300,000 in a retirement account and become financially independent. And I say that because if you're actively spending time, I mean, when I started, I had negative $6,000 and then I turned that into $20 million worth of property. I don't care how much money you have. If you're willing to have the right team around you and do the right strategies, you can turn that into financial freedom. It doesn't take 20 dang years. I mean, that's a myth that Wall Street has propagated. It's really a 5-year or less plan. Anybody, whether you start at 0 or 100,000 or 1 million, it doesn't make any difference. It's really just your commitment. Okay, another cool strategy is the $12,000 kid strategy. You can pay your kids up to $12,200 per year, tax-free income to them. So here's the thing. You get a deduction if you pay anybody. Okay, great. So you pull $12,200 off your income, goes to your kid. Now it's income to them. The first $12,200 of anybody's income is tax-free. That's the new tax bracket that happened 2.5 years ago. So your kid now has $12,200 in a bank account that you control. You got a tax deduction of $12,200. Your kid has active income. So you could actually have your kid could put this into a Roth EQRP. So it's like now it's there and it's growing tax-free. And that $12,200 can be pulled out at any point, at any age, tax-free, penalty-free. So you could do this over the next 10 years and have $100,000 sitting in an account and then say, okay, here, take the $100,000 back out. All the gains continue to grow tax-free forever. And this is just an example of what you can do with kids. How do you pay them $12,000? I was a child model for JCPenney. I think it just went bankrupt. I don't think that was my fault, but I don't know. Anyway, 5 years old, this is what I was doing. I was modeling in their back to school catalog. You could have kids do things like child model for websites. There's a lot of things. I think kids are probably smarter than most adults with social media. You could definitely hire them. And $12,000 is nothing for paying for marketing and things. Lots of options. Bottom line is this is a way for you to peel off another $12,000 from your income. You're going to spend it on your kids anyway. Even if you don't use it for a retirement account, figure out how to pay your kids $12,000, and then you can spend that $12,000 on their behalf because you're going to do it anyway. So if you're paying taxes, it's a choice, it's optional. And if you don't want to pay taxes, then you're really just making a bad choice. Okay, so how do you get money in the EQRP? Anything that you have that you want to roll over other than a Roth IRA or an inherited IRA can go in there. Pretty much an unlimited number of them, and not pretty much any number. You can put 50 if you want in. And I'll show you the CARES Act and how that allowed you to roll over some of the stuff that's currently in employers' plans that you are working for right now. You can move deals over. If you have deals that are inside an IRA or something, you can move those deals over into your EQRP. You can also make contributions of up to $57,000 per year. If you're under age 50, if you're over, it's another $6,500. It can be deferred or Roth money, meaning you can have this all being after tax. And as a side note, I would highly recommend and encourage you guys to all work with tax strategists to get your money into Roth as soon as you can, because you're going to zero taxes forever. I think anybody that has any intelligence knows we're going to be in a higher tax rate environment down the road. Like we don't go lower than where we're at now. And that just means that if you can't get your stuff to a locked in zero, it's probably going to go up to a lot higher than it is now. So let's get it to zero. That's why Roth is so valuable. Okay, so let's talk about the CARES Act and what happened in March 27th, 2020. The CARES Act was passed, this overnight. $2.2 trillion was spent. And part of that spending was to allow people to do things like shift some retirement money. The CARES Act allowed you to take up to $100,000 out of any retirement account that's out there and do what you want with it. You can keep it. You can roll it over into another retirement account. If you want to keep it, you pay taxes over 3 years, or you can put it into a self-directed account. So as an example, and no penalty for doing this. Normally it's a 10% penalty if you pulled it out before 59.5. What you can do is if you want to pull out the $100,000, and this could be a 401k at work, it could be a thrift savings plan with the federal government. If you're a military or you're a federal employee, you now have the ability to take up to $100,000 or whatever you have, whichever is less, pull it out, goes into your account, and then you can put it into an EQRP, and now you have self-direction control. Imagine that. It's an amazing opportunity. It only lasts this year. It's a very limited time thing. And there's one provision that only lasts another 60 days. So these were super narrow opportunities in terms of timing. This is an incredible opportunity to get your money out of Wall Street, out of mutual funds, and to be able to control it. The other one that is that another part of the CARES Act was the $100,000 credit line. And normally with this only applies to 401ks, thrift savings plans. It does not apply to IRAs. It used to be that it was $50,000 that you could borrow, up to 50,000 or 50% of your money. What they did is they said up to $100,000 or 100% of your money you can borrow, and no payments for a year, and then you pay it back over 5 years. Well, that's pretty cool. It only lasts until September of this year. Like, you have to do this between now and September. And this is in addition to the first one. It's in addition to this. So you've got this. This is called a disbursement that is technically going to end up looking like a rollover. And then this is a loan, and you just pay it back, but no payments for a year. You also have the option, if you have any loans outstanding with a 401k or a thrift savings plan, you don't have to make payments in 2020. You can just skip them. So this is kind of funny that this slide became very strange, because I've been using this particular slide with the toilet paper for about 2 years. And back in 2008, I was in my real estate meltdown. I had my American Express Black Card, which you can buy unlimited amounts of everything, except when you go to Costco in 2008 and you try to buy a pallet of toilet paper, which I did, and they said it was declined. And I looked at them very snarky like and said, how could this be declined? It's a Black Card. I have unlimited spending. I can buy anything. They said, well, you can't buy toilet paper. And I said, that can't be right. I could buy a Ferrari. And they're like looking at me, sir, can you get out of line? And at the time, they only took American Express. And I was like many people, I just lived on credit. So I didn't have like cash. Like, who would have cash? Crazy. Until it's not. And I called American Express, and they said, you're part of a group that we are seeing losses with. Like, my account was fine, but all of a sudden my limit was 11,000, the same as my balance. And that happens when credit markets or credit facilities like American Express and Visa and the banks, when they start seeing losses, they just freeze people's accounts. The nice thing about having a $100,000 or a $50,000 credit line with an EQRP is it can never be frozen. It's literally you with your checkbook, you decide you need to get toilet paper or whatever else, assuming you can find toilet paper. You just go write the check. Like, you always have access to it. It's a major difference than hoping that American Express or Visa will keep your line of credit open. That sucks when you actually need something and they tell you no. So this takes away the power and control from them and puts it in your hands. Anybody that speaks Portuguese, now I know your mics are off, but if this was if we were in an audience, I would ask you to put your hand up if anybody spoke Portuguese or was from Brazil. Barato Sai caro means cheap objects can be expensive. And it's, what I mean by this is that we tend to get advice from idiots, people that are stupid. And it's not that they're bad people, they're just ignorant. And a lot of times we either Google things or we ask our next door neighbor. We don't talk to people that have intelligence around execution, meaning they haven't done it. They're not experts. They tend to just have opinions, and we take opinions because they're in black and white as at face value, or we listen to our family because we go, well, why would they tell me not to tell me to do something that's not right? They love me. Yeah, but they also don't want you to do anything that would make them uncomfortable. So bottom line is, life is too short to argue with stupid people. And that includes people that are just ignorant. So when I say stupid, I'm really saying ignorant people, people that have commentary without actual wisdom. The other alternative is finding people that are Yoda-ish, people that are balder and grayer. Now, you can't see it because of my hat, but I'm very bald. And yeah, I used to have a ton of hair. And then I did a lot of business, a lot of investing. And wisdom shows up when your hair goes away. That's what I've decided. And I would encourage you to listen to people that have the wisdom of doing stuff and not just talking about a good game, but have really done it. Those are the people that can tell you what's going to happen because they can see around the corner. It's called emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence. It's called your DNA has been hardwired by the experiences. I'm going to share some of those with you in a second. One of the things that I missed beginning of my career is I didn't have rules. So I kind of just did anything. And I made a lot of money, and that was all good until the money went away. And then I said, wait, was that good, bad? Like, what just happened? I wrote these rules in 2010 because I wanted to protect me from me, and mostly me from my ego. This is critical. If you're going to be in business, if you're going to be an investor and you don't have rules, you're a ticking time bomb. Like, literally, you have to have rules, because otherwise you really don't know what's guiding you. 3 of those rules that I circled there were about people. I only work with people that are self-responsible. If you're a victim, you don't get to be in my world, because it's just not worth it. Like, self-responsible people are fun to be around because they just don't have the blame game going on. And it's just a lot more interesting to work with them, and you grow together versus being stuck in a rut together. I don't invest more than 5% of my portfolio. In the beginning, I invested about 500% of my portfolio in one thing. Now it's like 5% in any deal I don't control. And that's an adjustment. So whatever it is for you, if you have $100,000, you're really not going to be able to get away with putting $5,000 into one deal and having your investing work. I did this because I know that I'm going to be wrong. And I've been wrong enough to where it's like in school, they tell you if you're wrong, you're an idiot and they kick you out. Like if you get 50% wrong, I'm never going to get 50% right in the real world. But if I did, I'd be a billionaire 8 times over. So in reality, I just want to make sure I can survive my trips and I can get up and keep going. And I encourage you all to do the same. And the last one is I have a rule about where I invest. I don't invest in things in places where they require bulletproof vests. And this is because I had a personal experience buying in Memphis in a place I thought was safe. It was by Graceland. It was actually across the street from Elvis's house. And I bought this thing thinking I was going to make $1 million on the property. And about 6 months in, I got a call and they said, somebody has stolen all your copper. And I said, which copper? And they said, all of it, 119 units gone. And I said, well, that's terrible. We got insurance. So after insurance fought with us for about 6 months, we got about 40 cents on the dollar. And then we got another call and my person said, we got a problem. I said, what's that? And they said, well, they stole your copper again. I said, how is that possible? We had an armed guard. And they said, well, that's the bigger problem. They killed your guard. So, it's hard to process that. It's pretty heavy when somebody dies protecting your property. And I decided it wasn't worth it for me to invest in a place where not only did I have to have bulletproof vests, but the people were really dying. Doesn't matter how much the returns are. For me, that rule was put in place to protect me from the greed of making money because the weight that it put on my shoulders. So I would encourage you to borrow somebody's rules that's been around, that's balder, grayer than you are, and leverage off of those things. The biggest concern I think most of us have, and this is what is this? Wells Fargo Retirement Communications, WBR Market Intelligence. Biggest concern we have is we're going to run out of money before we run out of our lives. And it doesn't matter whether you're a millennial, Gen Z, boomers, Gen X, this is the number one concern. And how do we fix that? We take control of our stuff. We get better tools. We get better teams, and we become better investors. We become more self-responsible. When that happens, the concern goes away, and it happens because you take action. I have a podcast called Financial Underdogs, and this last week I talked about taking some type of action. It gets you out of this state of paralysis, where when you take action, it's like this certainty where you have control. If you're sitting there mulling around in your brain, you're just going to stay concerned and anxious. You're going to be anxious about the future and depressed about the past, and it's going to be a mess. The alternative is you take a step, which is in the present. There's only one place to do something. You can't do in the future. You can only do now. You maybe will do something in the future, but the point is taking a step in the right direction, and then not caring if it's actually wrong later. Just taking a step is a critical piece so that you're not sitting here afraid of the future. The other thing that's really important is that you're sharing. It's kind of like loving someone. When you love someone, it doesn't take love away from you. It's not like you give up your love if you love somebody. Same thing with information. When you share information, it doesn't take it away from you. It enhances other people, and you get to be a bit of a superhero. And I think there's a part of us that wants that. We want to share and contribute. In fact, it's one of our basic human needs. The 6 needs that Tony Robbins talked about years ago, one of them is contribution to other people. And for me, one of the other needs is significance. So I was like, cool, I got a Ferrari and I'm rich, and I was all by myself and I wasn't really helping other people. So I missed the other piece, the contribution piece. And if you'll take this information and share it with other people, you're going to change lives. Maybe this is perfect for you. Maybe it's for somebody else. So let me give you a tool that you can share with other people. And also this will summarize everything I just went through. If you text the number 72,000 with the word EQRP, you're going to get a chance to get both the report. So the report's going to be emailed to your phone. You can share that with people if you want. And then you're going to be asked if you want a copy of the QRP book. Now, I wrote the QRP book. Y'all saw that in the very beginning, and I will send a copy to you. I will ship a copy to you. It's on me. I want you to be empowered and make better decisions because you have better information. So please do text this and get this report. Even if you're just going to share it with somebody, but get the information, because guaranteed somebody's going to come to you and say, oh, my IRA is stuck, or I'm losing my job, or I'm quitting, or whatever. And they're going to need to know what you just learned. And this is one of the greatest gifts you can give to someone is the truth. And that's really the choice. It's either that or you end up with really bad tattoos. And this one is hell on earth when you hear this or you say this, that I wish I coulda. And that's not what you want. What you want, guaranteed, is to say, wow, that was spectacular. That's why we're here. And it's not just to consume or be hedonist like I was 10 years ago. It's really to serve other people and to grow as much as we can. Like humans are funny. We're the only things that stop growing short of what we're capable of in the world. Like a tree doesn't stop halfway up. It just keeps going until it's done. Humans have the choice. And so I hope y'all will take the right step. You'll take a step, you'll communicate, you'll learn more. I'll answer your questions now. And if you have other questions, you can definitely reach out to me anytime. Easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn, or you can visit the company and connect with me. But let me answer some of the questions. I think we did have a couple of questions. If you have any questions, just go to the chat box and throw them in there. And I don't know if you can put your hand up or not, but you can certainly.
You should be able to raise your hand if you'd like, or you can just jump over to the chat box, type your questions. This is an amazing opportunity to pick Damion's brain and just really kind of like dive into this topic. So I really hope you guys take advantage of this.
Let me see if I can go back to all right. So now we're back in the full screen here. I guess it's me and all y'all.
Let's see. We got a question coming in from Claudine. Amazing presentation. Thank you. Is this the same as solo 401k? If not, what are the main differences?
Good question. And thanks for asking it, because it's not the same thing. There's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are out there that are trying to confuse the issue because they sell solo 401ks. This is not a solo 401k. A lot of those are blowing up right now because the laws changed. A solo 401k cannot have employees, can't have part-time or full-time employees, as little as 10 hours a week. An EQRP can. It's built to be dynamic, and so it allows that. Solo 401k doesn't have the option to be totally protected from lawsuits, whereas an EQRP does. Those are a couple of major differences, and so they're written differently. The guts of them are differently. Solo 401ks are not anonymous. They typically are built to where people can see your stuff. With an EQRP, it is anonymous. It's private. There's no public record of anything. Major differences. Solo 401ks are kind of the cheap alternative, sort of a knockoff, and they can work if you have a few dollars, and you don't really care about whether or not you lose it, and you're never going to have any type of support. But an EQRP is fundamentally different, and it is the Ferrari.
Awesome. Okay, can I max out my 401k, also fund an IRA and QRP? Do I need to reduce my taxable income? Or I do need to reduce my taxable income. Currently owe $30,000 for 2018.
Okay, so great question. So you can, the 401k and the EQRP are together. There's an aggregate, which is the total amount you can contribute to all those plans is $57,000 if you're under age 50. So you can't do like $57,000 to a 401k and another $57,000 to an EQRP. You can do 57 between the two, plus another, say, 6,000 to an IRA if you have the income. And then if you have a tax issue, one of the things that's really important is to make sure you have a tax strategist, not somebody that's filing your taxes, but somebody that actually understands what people are doing to use the tax code. And if you don't have those, I'm sure Whitney has some people. We have people that are some of the best in the country. It's part of that tax strategy conversation. So there are ways to reduce your taxes for 2019 today, even though we're in 2020. And then clearly there's ways to reduce and eliminate your taxes going forward. If you're involved in real estate, if you're involved with the right teams, there's really not a reason that you should be paying taxes going forward. It's kind of a bold statement, but it's just true.
All right. So just to confirm, can I hold a employer-sponsored simple IRA and an EQRP at the same time?
You can have one type of retirement account typically. And this is, when we're talking about the nuance of having multiple retirement accounts in one place, they're like as simple in an EQRP, you got to choose one or the other. And so sometimes people will do one because they're trying to exclude employees, or they want to have, there's reasons for doing these. It gets more complex. And this is where you want a team, because if you try to figure all this stuff out on your own, it's hard. You typically, Bill, your question about having a simple or an EQRP, it kind of depends on what you want to invest in too, because sometimes it's easier to have a simple if all you're going to do is say mutual funds. But if you're going to do real estate or physical gold or things like that, then a simple is going to get you killed with taxes. with the UBIT tax. So in that case, you would definitely not want to use a symbol. You'd want to switch it over, which you'd have to do at the end of the year because you have to run those calendar year end to year end.
Awesome. So Damion, this is kind of playing off a couple questions that I've gotten via email, and then also, some private chats that I have here. Who would be kind of your go-to for tax strategists?
So I like people that are actually investing. There are a lot of smart people, but I actually like my favorite, like you had mentioned in the chat, Provision. I like them a lot. That's Tom Wheelwright's firm that he's connected to, who many of you realize or have read his book, Tax Free Wealth, which if you haven't, that is the book I would start with. If you're trying to figure out this tax stuff, read Tom's book. And he also has a great podcast called The Wealthability Show. And there are other people, like there's a firm in Dallas that Deb Pritchard is a partner in. And again, I like people that are doing it. It's a big difference. There are smart people, but like, I don't want to have an attorney necessarily just do work on my stuff that doesn't actually invest, because I want them to understand my perspective. And same with the accountants, the accountants at Provision, the accountants at Deb's firm. I know for a fact they're investing in syndications. They're doing syndications. They're doing stuff outside of mutual funds. I want that alignment. So I think there's a lot of great firms out there, and that's the question I would ask. What are you doing? And I want to know what your clients are. Are all of your clients real estate investors? Are you a real estate investor? And if the answer is yes, then that's a pretty good place to start.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I have a Roth managed by a major Wall Street mutual fund firm and a TSP managed by another Wall Street firm. Who manages the money in the EQRP?
And the answer is you. You get to be in charge of your money. The system, one of the slides is, people ask, why haven't I heard of this? And it's because the system is set up to keep your money under their management and their control. Why don't you know about an EQRP? Because it takes the management and control out of this system. So they don't get to charge you these asset management fees, 1, 2, 3, 4% every year. And so you're not going to hear them ever talk about a good strategy that's going to take away their revenue stream. So you actually manage your money, whether you want to convert your Roth IRA into a self-directed type of environment, or you want to convert money in a TSP over to an EQRP. This is like alphabet soup. The bottom line is, it's a question of who do you want to have control stuff. If you want control, that's an option. It's an option for anybody right now.
Awesome. I have a follow-up question to this, because I think, when I talk to investors, and one of the things when we talk about moving that control to, going into a personal control setting, is the mindset shifts that have to happen. How would you kind of help guide somebody in these mindset shifts? Because I know this is kind of an area that you like to get into.
Well, yeah, here's what happened. Back in the 70s, our system changed and 401ks and IRAs were created, and it basically forced people to all of a sudden be investors. Like, we had people that y'all do good jobs, working, doing whatever you're doing. And then one day, all of a sudden you have this money and someone hands it to you and says, go do your thing. And you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And so the mindset is really building a muscle. If you think about it that way, like if you want to be fit, you don't just stare at the gym. Like, you have to go in and start lifting things up, and you don't go lift up a 400-pound barbell with weights. You start off with some dumbbells or something. And so you start off, the mindset is built, not because you will it, not because you watched The Secret, but because you made a choice. You made a choice with something small that you can say, okay, I can digest that. Here's the kind of the secret around this. I mean, it's truly something that will change your life. Borrow somebody else's confidence and certainty. This is where having teams, having Whitney, having Julie, having Annie, having people around you that are certain, you borrow it. And the only way you do that is you find people that you trust that are actually not full of crap. And when you trust them and you're following their guidance, you'll be able to do things faster, making decisions without going, am I going to be wrong? Because you're borrowing, you're leveraging off of their confidence. It's the fastest way to change your life. If you're uncertain and don't want to make mistakes, you just leverage off other people's. I don't know another way that does it better. And The Secret is not going to get you there. The secret is get the right people around you.
All about the team. I like it. All right. Another question came in. I have a company 401k rollover to an IRA run by a financial advisor. How can I move to an EQRP?
So if you have a 401k that you converted to an IRA, it's the same thing as an IRA. It's just all there. You literally decide if you want to do something with real estate or something where you want to do something different. Once we set up an EQRP, we direct that financial advisor to convert the money, to move the money over into your checking account that we set up. It's really that simple. It's how you do it. You have us set up the account, and then we basically we arm wrestle the financial advisor to give you your money. One of the things I will warn you about is that financial advisors typically are not super excited about your money going somewhere that they don't get to control, manage, and fee. So it's really up to you. Do you think it's your money, or do you think it's their money? Because they typically think it's their money. Unfortunately, that's like way too common. So it's an option.
I can speak to that from personal experience. That is true. That is true. So I'm going to skip down a couple questions. Can my W-2 be too high where I can't use loss from real estate depreciation to offset my W-2?
This is a great question. And this is, again, where having tax strategists, so I'm not one, I'm a professional investor and I run this company. The way your W-2, if you have somebody in your household, let's say you have a spouse that's a real estate professional, there are ways to offset. Right now, the rules changed in March. So there are ways to offset like all of your income with real estate. You need to have somebody on your team, and this is all they do, the tax strategy part. So great question. And these rules are changing. Like literally, one of the reasons accountants right now, if you call most accountants, they're like, I can talk to you in like October or November. They're so buried because of all this money with the PPP and everything that's going on, and the net operating losses that allowed people to get refunds from 5 years ago. Like all the stuff that's happening, you gotta get engaged with somebody and say, okay, here's my situation. I like Provision because they work with a ton of very high net worth people. So it's always funny because people will say, well, how much does Provision cost? Or how much does an EQRP cost? Or these questions. Well, like Provision, you could spend $20,000, $30,000. And most people are like, oh my gosh, I just like vomited in my mouth. Okay, I got it. If they save you $50,000 or $100,000, what difference does it make? You're going to write a $50,000 or $100,000 check, or you can write the $20,000. So you get what you pay for, and that's one of the important things. It's not necessarily about the flashy building or it's about the bottom line results. What is the result? If you want the best result, you get what you pay for. And so I would encourage you to think about that, because give you an example, you can get a free IRA, self-directed IRA. You can get a free solo 401k, free, like zero, and you get what you pay for. They're out there. I can give you links. And so you can get free accounting software. It's online now. And is it going to help you pay no taxes? Nope, not a chance. So I think it's really important for us to ask, do we want to pay for the best, or do we want to pay multiple times for junk? And that's what, unfortunately, our society is kind of set up to click and buy based on cheapest price on Amazon. And then we keep buying stuff over and over again because it keeps breaking. So just to the question of it, this is going back to the W-2 and the cost of things. Make sure you have the best on your team, the best that you can absolutely afford. And typically the best don't cost money. Teams that you think are a lot of money actually will end up making you a lot of money and saving you a lot more money. Cheap people cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. It's kind of like the slot machine. If you put $20 in and you get $100 out every single time, I'll play that slot machine all day long.
Bring it. Let's go. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So that kind of like leads me into a question that I'm sure everybody's dying to understand is like, what are the first steps to setting up an EQRP? What is the financial commitment?
So the steps are really, it's a discovery process. We need to make sure that this is a good fit. Some people it's not a good fit for. And some of that's psychology, some of it's people are just not ready to take control of their money. And some people just they literally aren't a candidate. And so it's a discovery process. So let's assume that we have that conversation and you are a candidate. Then we set up an EQRP. And after a couple of days, you have everything you need, including your bank account, everything is set up. And then you're able to contribute and or roll over. Financial commitments, typically it's $3,500 and it's $400 a year. And that covers what you need. It's paid for by your retirement account. So it's pre-tax money that you get to use for it. And that's pretty much it. You've got a team supporting you for this process. And that's, it's kind of priceless. I think about 20 years ago when I was starting and how stupid I was to think that I could just be smart enough to run everything. And I wish I had spent more money on smart people to be around. I probably would have kept the $20 million. So it's a thought. The question, like Whitney said, the team, who's on your team, and make sure you can get the best possible team that's available to you.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, we are almost at time. I just want to, we'll take 2 more questions and then, kind of wrap up. So for the most part, my only passive income comes from investing in multifamily apartment syndications. The rest of the income comes from my 9-to-5 job, which is a W-2. Can I still qualify for an EQRP?
Absolutely. There's absolutely, you can have multiple things, W-2s, passive income, and an EQRP. And so, yeah, I mean, the question is, should you do it? And that's really the question that we would dig into and figure out if it's a good fit. I think if you talk to anybody that ever reaches out to us, that's when the conversation happens, it's not about how do we sell you something. It's about figuring out what's actually best for you. And sometimes we actually send you somewhere else to get something that makes more sense. So I would just encourage you to set up a call so we can figure out what might be a good tool for you.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm going to ask a question because I know when, Damion, you and I started working together, this is the one that was a burning question in my mind. You did touch on it in the presentation. I know there's several of our investors on this call. Can you recap how it works if you're already invested through your IRA funds in moving everything to EQRP?
Yeah, if you already have your IRA invested in something, what we do is we set up an EQRP, and then we direct and we do this with you. So we don't just say, hope it works out. We actually are on the phone and working through this process. Logistically, what we'll do is we'll contact the custodian that has your asset, your investment, and we'll request a rollover. It's called an in-kind rollover. We move the asset, we change the title from the custodian to your EQRP. Once that happens, we send a letter. It's called a re-registration letter, and we provide this to you. We send it over to the sponsor of whoever's running the deal, and they change the titling. Once that's done, all the future distributions and gains all go to your EQRP. At that point, no more UBIT tax. So it's really just those 2 steps after your EQRP is set up, and we walk you through both of them.
Awesome. Thanks for recapping that, because I'm sure that's a burning question on everybody's mind right now. Well, hey, I have 1 minute to the top of the hour. Thank you so much for joining us today, Damion. Can you just take a brief moment to let everybody know how they can best reach you?
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2 options. The one on the slide, you can send the word EQRP to 72,000, and I'm putting that in the chat. And you can also visit us at eqrp.co. And that's the best way to reach me and the team. There's a number of people. So when you reach out, if you want to reach out to me directly, I love hearing from you, especially if you're a part of this group. So just find me on LinkedIn and send me a message. But don't send me a bot message. I hate those. When somebody sends you a message and obviously they're cutting and pasting the same message to everybody. Hey, I just wanted to connect. Hey, I'm a human. I like human relationships. So if you want to connect, I totally want to connect. Just be a human with me.
Awesome. Well, Damion, thank you so much for your time today. This was such powerful information. I really hope everybody has gleaned a lot of insight of what they can do with their IRAs, or different type of retirement vehicles, even the pearly nuggets that you delivered on how to take advantage of the CARES Act. Again, those provisions are sunsetting here within 60 days and by the end of the year. So make sure this is a do not delay situation, guys.
Take that step. There are things that are changing. We're likely to see a major congressional bill come through in the next few weeks. Could actually change some of the things that already happened. And I will give you this last thing. The laws that change economically and tax-wise oftentimes get grandfathered, meaning whatever was I'll give you a good example of this. An inherited IRA, a retirement account, used to be that if you inherited something, you got to spend it and grow it the rest of your life. That changed January 1st of this year. Now, if inherited, then you have 10 years to spend it. So what they did is they said, oh, if we change the rule, then we can make $10 billion in new revenue. That's great. Well, what happens to everybody else? People that already had it, like I have one, I get to keep mine. I'm grandfathered. Some of these rules that we've talked about are going to go away. Guaranteed. Congress, there's a socialist push right now. They're going to go after wealthy people, and anybody with more than $50 apparently is wealthy. So when that happens, it's likely that if you have it, you're good. If you don't have it, you may not be able to get it. So just think about that when you're thinking about timing. If this is a good fit, or might be, now is better than later.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. And guys, again, thank you for joining us on the webinar and investing in your education. And until next time, we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Bye.